The Silent Sentinel. Admiral Xarvel stood on the command deck of the Impetus, flagship of the Talaxian Empire's 7th expansion fleet. His scaled fingers traced the holographic projection of a small blue-green planet that rotated slowly before him. Earth, an isolated world on the fringe of the galactic arm, home to a species that had barely ventured beyond their own moon. Primitive, muttered Sub-Commander Lori, her bioluminescent spots pulsing with anticipation. Their transmissions show they have basic spaceflight, but nothing that could challenge even our smallest vessels. Xarvel nodded, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. The Talaxian Empire had conquered 17 systems in the past decade alone. This isolated planet would be the 18th, a strategic outpost on the edge of unexplored space. "Begin standard approach protocols," he ordered. "Let's see if these humans understand the concept of surrender." The fleet of 20 warships slipped from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, their sleek hulls absorbing rather than reflecting light, a technology perfected over centuries of conquest. Sensors immediately began mapping the system, cataloging resources, military assets, and potential threats. "Report," Xarvel demanded after the initial scans were complete. "Minimal orbital defenses, Admiral," replied the sensor officer. "A small space station, several hundred satellites, mostly for communication, a handful of primitive vessels moving between their planet and their moon. No energy weapons detected, no shield technology, no fleet." Xarvel's inner eyelids blinked in satisfaction. Another easy conquest for the Empire. "Strange," muttered the sensor officer, antennae twitching. "There are unusual energy signatures coming from their oceans, extremely faint, almost as if deliberately masked." "Elaborate," ordered Xarvel. "Impossible to say with certainty, sir. The readings appear and disappear at random intervals. It could be nothing, perhaps just unique properties of their planet's magnetic field interacting with the saltwater." The Admiral considered this information. Most species concentrated their defenses in space or on land. Few thought to hide anything in the depths of their oceans. "Send a scout ship to investigate," he commanded, quietly. The smallest vessel in the fleet detached itself from the formation, engaging its stealth systems as it accelerated toward Earth. They would observe for several cycles before making formal contact, standard procedure when encountering potentially valuable but underdeveloped worlds. Hours passed, and Xarvel grew impatient. The scout ship had gone silent shortly after entering Earth's atmosphere. "Technical malfunction," he asked his communications officer. "Uncertain, Admiral. The last transmission mentioned unusual magnetic disturbances near what the humans call the Mariana Trench." Then nothing. Xarvel's skin darkened with concern. "Send another. Full sensor array active this time." The second scout suffered the same fate, disappearing completely from their tracking systems after reporting massive structures deep within Earth's Pacific Ocean. Something cold settled in Xarvel's secondary stomach. This was not consistent with a primitive species. This was not consistent with any known defensive strategy in the galactic database. "Move the fleet closer," he ordered. "Full combat readiness." As the Talaxian ships approached Earth's orbit, they'd broadcast the standard Imperial greeting, a message of peaceful intentions backed by the implicit threat of overwhelming force. Earth's responses were frustratingly diplomatic, neither surrendering nor threatening, merely acknowledging the Talaxian presence and requesting time to consult with their global leadership. "They're stalling," Lori observed. "Yes," agreed Xarvel. "But why? They must know they cannot match our firepower." That night, as Earth rotated beneath them, something changed. The sensor officer called out in alarm as energy readings spiked dramatically across the planet's oceans. "Admiral, the water, it's moving." On the view screen, they watched as perfect circles formed on Earth's oceans, miles wide, water spiraling upward in defiance of gravity. The circles appeared simultaneously in the Pacific, Atlantic, and Indian Oceans, too perfect, too synchronized to be natural phenomena. Full defensive posture, Xarvel ordered, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew it might be too late. From the center of each watery vortex, massive structures began to rise. Not the crude vessels of a developing civilization, but enormous ships of a design and scale that made the Talaxian fleet look like toys in comparison. They emerged silently, water cascading from sleek black hulls adorned with lines of blue energy that pulsed like veins. "Impossible," whispered Lori, her bioluminescence dimming in fear. Our intelligence indicated no such capability. The first vessel alone was nearly 3 miles long, shaped like an arrowhead, with smooth curves that suggested both ancient design and technological perfection. As it rose higher, they could see weapon ports running along its length, each large enough to swallow a Talaxian frigate whole. "Scan them," Xarvel ordered, his voice steady despite the fear gripping his hearts. "I can't, Admiral," the sensor officer replied, confusion evident in her voice. "Our scans simply slide off. It's as if they're not even there, yet we can see them clearly." 2 more behemoths followed the first, rising from different oceans, but identical in design. All 3 moved with impossible grace for their size, taking position in Earth's lower atmosphere, forming a triangle that encompassed nearly a third of the planet's surface. "They're called Dreadnoughts," came a calm human voice over their communication systems. The view screen shifted to show a woman in a simple gray uniform, her face serene but her eyes hard as stellar diamonds. "And they've been sleeping for a very long time." "Who are you?" demanded Xarvel. "Why have you hidden such weapons?" "I am Admiral Helena Chen of the Earth Defense Authority," she replied. "As for why we've hidden our true capabilities, we prefer peace. We have found that displaying our strength often invites challenge rather than cooperation." "You deceived the galaxy," Xarvel accused. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change. "We protected ourselves. These vessels were built centuries ago, during a time of great peril. When that peril passed, we chose to hide them rather than use them to dominate. That was our choice, restraint, not weakness." The 3 dreadnoughts now hovered in formation, silent sentinels above Earth's blue expanse. They had fired no weapons, made no aggressive moves, yet their mere presence was more threatening than any battle fleet Xarvel had ever encountered. "We have monitored your empire's expansion," Chen continued. "We know what happens to worlds that resist. We chose to appear harmless, hoping you would pass us by. Now that you're here, we offer you a choice. Leave in peace, or learn why we built these ships in the first place." Before Xarvel could respond, alarms blared across the command deck. Something was happening to the stars behind Earth. They seemed to be bending, warping as if space itself was being folded. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out, her voice trembling. "Something is coming. Something massive." The darkness between stars rippled, and from that ripple emerged a shape that defied comprehension. Not a ship or a station, but something organic and mechanical at once, tentacles of dark matter reaching across thousands of miles of space. "And that," said Admiral Chen, her voice now grave, "is why we built the Dreadnoughts. We call it the Devourer. It has returned sooner than we expected." Fear turned to confusion as Xarvel realized that the human was no longer addressing him. Her attention had shifted entirely to the monstrosity emerging from the fold in space. "What is happening?" he demanded. Chen's eyes returned to the screen. "Admiral Xarvel, I suggest you withdraw your fleet immediately. What comes next is not your fight. Not yet. But know this, the Dreadnoughts were never built to conquer. They were built to protect. Not just Earth, but all life in this galaxy." The Dreadnoughts began to move, their massive forms accelerating toward the cosmic horror with impossible speed. As they did, panels along their hulls slid open, revealing weapons unlike anything the Talaxian Empire had ever witnessed. "Retreat," ordered Xarvel, suddenly understanding that he had stumbled into something far larger and more ancient than a simple conquest. "Full retreat." As the Talaxian fleet turned to flee, Sarvel couldn't tear his eyes from the view screen, where Earth's hidden guardians moved to engage an enemy from beyond the stars, an enemy that humanity had apparently faced before and somehow survived. The last thing he saw before his ship jumped to hyperspace was the lead dreadnought opening like a flower, revealing a core of pure energy that outshone Earth's sun. In that moment, Admiral Sarvel understood the truth. Earth hadn't hidden its strength out of fear. It had hidden its strength out of mercy. The legacy of fire. The Talaxian retreat had been hasty but not complete. Admiral Sarvel had ordered his command ship and 3 escorts to remain at the edge of the solar system, hidden behind Jupiter's massive bulk. From this vantage point, they watched as humanity's dreadnoughts engaged the entity they called the Devourer. "Record everything," Sarvel ordered, his voice hushed. "A high command must see this." The battle unfolding before them defied conventional understanding of warfare. The Devourer, a writhing mass of dark matter and strange energies, seemed to bend reality around itself. Where its tendrils touched, space itself fractured, creating micro-singularities that threatened to tear apart the fabric of existence. Against this cosmic horror stood Earth's 3 dreadnoughts, their sleek black hulls now fully illuminated with lines of blue energy that pulsed in perfect synchronization. They moved not like ships, but like dancers in a choreographed performance, anticipating the Devourer's movements before they occurred. "Sir," whispered Sub-Commander Lori, "the energy output from those vessels, it's beyond anything in our database. Those aren't fusion reactors or antimatter engines. They're using something else entirely." Sarvel nodded silently. The human Admiral Chen's words echoed in his mind. They'd been sleeping for a very long time. How long? What enemy had forced humanity to create such weapons? And why hide them afterward, appearing weak and vulnerable to the galaxy? His questions were interrupted by a blinding flash as the lead dreadnought unleashed its power. A beam of concentrated energy, not laser, not plasma, but something fundamental, as if light itself had been weaponized, lanced toward the Devourer. Where it struck, the creature's mass contracted violently, parts of it seeming to collapse into nothingness. The Devourer retaliated immediately, a tendril of absolute darkness wrapping around the second dreadnought. For a moment, the massive ship disappeared entirely from view, swallowed by the void. Then something remarkable happened. From within that perfect darkness came light, not reflected but generated, burning away the darkness from inside. The dreadnought emerged, its hull scared but intact, and all 3 vessels moved into a new formation. "Admiral," came a human voice over their comms. "This is Admiral Chen. We know you're still watching." Sarvel stiffened but signaled for the channel to be opened. "I am observing, yes." "What is that thing?" "We call it the Devourer, an ancient entity that feeds on stars and civilizations alike. It first came to our system 400 years ago, when humanity was just beginning to explore our own solar system. We were nearly destroyed." On the view screen, Chen's face showed the weight of history. "But we survived. We adapted. We built the dreadnoughts not just as weapons, but as prisons, designed to contain the Devourer's essence and prevent its return." "Yet it has returned," observed Sarvel. "Yes, sooner than we calculated. And now we face a choice." Chen's eyes met his across the vast distance. "The dreadnoughts can defeat it again, but at great cost. Or, prompted Sarvel when she paused. "Or we could work together. Your fleet possesses gravitational manipulation technology that could assist our containment protocols. With your help, we might defeat the Devourer without the collateral damage that would otherwise be inevitable." Sarvel's mandibles clicked in surprise. "You would trust us, after we came to conquer your world?" Chen's smile was small but genuine. "The Devourer doesn't distinguish between humans and Talaxians. Admiral, if it breaks free, all life in this sector will be at risk. Sometimes, the greatest enemies can become the most valuable allies. Before Xarvel could respond, alarms blared across his command deck. The Devourer had suddenly expanded, its dark mass engulfing one of the Dreadnoughts entirely. The other two vessels maintained their positions, but energy readings showed they were straining against some invisible force. "It's attempting to break the containment field," Chen explained, her calm facade cracking slightly. "If it succeeds..." Deep within the writhing darkness, something began to glow. Not the blue energy of the Dreadnoughts, but a sickly green light that seemed to absorb rather than emit illumination. The Devourer was changing, adapting. Xarvel made his decision. "What do you need us to do?" "Position your ships at these coordinates," Chen replied, relief evident in her voice as tactical data streamed to the Talaxian vessels. "Your gravitational generators need to be configured to these exact specifications." As the Talaxian ships moved into position, the full truth of Earth's history began to unfold. For centuries, humanity had maintained the illusion of being a young, relatively powerless species. They had deliberately limited their visible expansion to their immediate solar system, presenting themselves as non-threatening to the galactic community, all while guarding a secret that could destroy worlds. "The Dreadnoughts aren't just ships," Chen explained as they worked. "They're conduits for what we call the Legacy of Fire, an energy source discovered after our first encounter with the Devourer. It exists partially outside normal spacetime, which is why your sensors couldn't properly detect it." The Talaxian ships took position at precise points around the battle zone, their gravitational generators creating a complex field that began to compress the Devourer's expanding form. "The Legacy activates only when necessary," continued Chen. "It's too powerful, too dangerous to use for conventional purposes. The first time we used it, it burned out the minds of the pilots. Now the Dreadnoughts are largely autonomous, but they still require human consciousness to direct the Legacy's full potential." Inside the lead Dreadnought, a chamber unlike any other in human construction hummed with energy. Admiral Helena Chen sat within a neural interface. Her consciousness expanded beyond her physical form, merged partially with the great vessel itself. Through her mind flowed the Legacy of Fire, the collective memory, will, and determination of humanity distilled into pure energy. In this state, Chen could feel the Devourer's ancient hunger, its mindless determination to consume and destroy. She could also feel the Talaxian fleet, their fear, their wonder, and most importantly, their growing determination to help. "Now," she commanded, her voice resonating through both ships and minds. The Talaxian vessels activated their gravitational fields at maximum power, creating a compression zone around the Devourer. Simultaneously, all three Dreadnoughts channeled the Legacy of Fire into a concentrated beam that struck at the very center of the entity. The Devourer writhed in what could only be described as agony, its form contracting violently. Where the Legacy energy touched it, the darkness was not just pushed back but transformed. Matter converting to energy, entropy reversing, chaos becoming order. For a moment, everything hung in perfect balance. The Devourer's hunger against humanity's fire, destruction against creation. Then something shifted, deep within the compressed form of the Devourer. At the quantum level where reality becomes malleable, the Legacy of Fire found purchase. It spread through the entity like a counter-infection, converting darkness to light, hunger to satiation. The release of energy when the transformation completed was spectacular but controlled, channeled by the combined efforts of human and Talaxian technology into a harmless burst that dissipated into space. Where the Devourer had been, only empty space remained. In the silence that followed, Admiral Xarvel stared at the view screen, his understanding of the galaxy fundamentally altered. The humans had not just defeated an ancient cosmic horror, they had contained it, studied it, and ultimately transformed it. And they had done so not through dominance or aggression, but through a power born of survival and sacrifice. "For 4 centuries, Chen said softly, her image flickering as she emerged from the neural interface, "we have guarded against the Devourer's return. We built the Dreadnoughts not to conquer but to protect. We hid our true capability not out of fear, but because we learned long ago that power invites challenge, and weapons inspire weapons. Why reveal yourselves now? Asked Axarvel. You could have remained hidden. Let us believe you were defenseless. Chen's smile held both wisdom and sadness. Because isolation has its own costs, Admiral. Perhaps it's time for humanity to rejoin the galactic community, not as conquerors or victims, but as equals, as guardians. 3 days later, as diplomatic channels opened between Earth and the Talaxian Empire, Admiral Xarvel stood before the Imperial High Command, presenting his report on the encounter. Earth possesses technology far beyond our current understanding, he concluded. But more importantly, they possess wisdom in how they use it. They could have destroyed our fleet the moment we entered their system. Instead, they waited, observed, and ultimately chose cooperation over conflict. And these Dreadnoughts? Asked the Empress, her ancient face tight with concern. What guarantee do we have that humans won't use them against us in the future? Exarvel considered his words carefully. In all our conquered worlds, Your Majesty, we have never encountered a species that built such power and then chose to hide it. The humans could have established an empire to rival or exceed our own. Instead, they remained within their solar system, guarding against a threat most of us never knew existed. He paused, mandibles clicking softly. I believe their restraint speaks more to their character than any treaty ever could. In Earth's orbital diplomatic station, Admiral Helena Chen stood by a viewport, watching as Talaxian vessels docked alongside ships from a dozen other species, all drawn by the news of Earth's revelation and the defeat of the Devourer. Beside her stood the newly arrived Galactic Council representative, an ancient being from a species long allied with the Talaxians. For centuries, we thought Earth was a backwater world, the representative mused. Primitive, isolated, defenseless. Now we learn you've been standing guard all this time. Chen's gaze remained fixed on the stars, where the Dreadnoughts now orbited openly, their purpose finally known to the galaxy. Sometimes, she replied, the strongest sentinel is the one you never notice until the moment they're needed. The representative nodded slowly. And now, will Earth join the galactic community at last? Admiral Chen turned from the viewport, her eyes reflecting the distant light of the Dreadnoughts. We already have, she said. We've been part of it all along. You just didn't know we were protecting you. Behind her, Earth rotated slowly, its oceans now peaceful, its secrets revealed, not as a world of conquest or subjugation, but as a world of silent guardians who had chosen vigilance over glory, protection over power. The galaxy would never see Earth the same way again.